Hey guys, hope you're doing well today. Coming to you today with another review. Today I'm going to review a knife that a lot of people have asked me about. I wanted it for a long time. As soon as I seen it, the main thing that appealed to me was the plunge lock. Of course, that's the Medford Smooth Criminal. This is a really cool knife. I'm going to talk about the good things, the great things, and the bad things. It has its share of all, but overall, it gets a thumbs up for me. I'm glad I bought it. A few specs. The overall length is 7 inches. Blade length is 3 inches. It's a smaller knife than what you think by looking at the pictures. At least it was when it got into my hands. Drop point blade, hollow ground. No complaints there. I mean, it's ground to a fine point. Holds a great edge. S35 VN, okay. I mean, high-end knife, medium end steel, stone wash finish. The handle is made out of aluminum, and the spec is not on the sheet that I was looking at, but Greg Medford was telling me that it's an extremely hard aluminum. It'll resist dinging and dents, and that's going to be my first topic of discussion, is dinging and dents. A lot of you have seen pictures and videos of this knife that I posted because I was, kind of concerned when I got it that it had, I don't know if you can see it, but see these specks on it? These are actually dents. And there's a pretty big one right there in the aluminum itself. They're on both sides. There's a pretty good sized dent there. So of course I called Greg as soon as I got the knife and questioned him about it, and he was telling me about how they get this finish. It's put in like a tumbler with media in it, and my main concern was, is this normal? Is this a distressed look? Is this what they were going for? I'm fine if that's the case. It's not hideous to me at all. Just want to know that I didn't get the only one that's beat up. I go to sell it, and nobody wants it because of this. But he said it does happen time to time. It's not completely out of the ordinary, and that if it ate me up too bad, I could send it back and he'd change it out. It doesn't eat me up too bad, especially since I recently went to a supplier here in Houston that had probably the largest Medford collection for sale on the southern United States. He had a huge safe full of them. So he pulled out 5 Smooth Criminals, and I looked at every one of them, and though they didn't have quite what mine had, they had signs of what mine has. So that's an acceptable margin of error to me. It is what it is. For the price of this knife, I don't think it ought to have that, but if it's pretty common on these knives, it is what it is. I'm not a person who's that much of a stickler about that, because from 2 feet away you can't see anything. Okay, so let's get off of the bad and let's get on the good. Oh, one more thing that concerned me. I was in a store. This is a great knife for fidgeting, and I do it often. I carry this knife a lot. Well, I was in a store and I went to shake it, and I actually had blade play in there. I was like, oh shit. So I went to mess with the proprietary hardware and took my thumb, and I actually turned it. I held one side and I turned the other, and I looked at the notches. I actually did turn that with my finger, tightened it up, and it never came loose again. Another thing, I was speaking to that supplier, and he said, yeah, he's heard the exact same thing. Tighten it up with your finger and it doesn't come loose again. So probably just a break-in thing, no big deal. But overall, I'm glad I bought the knife. For all I've hooped and hollered about it, it's a good knife. Solid, it's just, it has a little flipper on there that doesn't, you really have to flip your wrist to get it to work. But that's okay, because you don't need it. You just push the button and fling it out. The knife nearly closes itself. Man, I think Medford ought to do this with every one of their knives. That is just cool. And that's the reason I bought this knife. I love plunge locks, push button locks, access locks. I'm just not a fan of frame locks, even though I bought the Sabenza. That's the only way you can get it. But I never use the flipper on it. I just flip it out like that. The great things are, I'm not a big fan of huge knives, and this is definitely not a huge knife. This is a great EDC knife. Some might say it's a little bit expensive. I don't know. I think it's worth it. You can get them on the secondary market, still pretty much new, for around $2. I mean, they're not break the bank expensive. It's the other Medfords that you gotta sell your car to buy. But this one, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. I think if you want one, I think you ought to get it. I don't have any huge complaints about it. It's just a great knife. You can see this is the full-size Griptilian. I mean, it just swallows it. This knife disappears in your pocket. The Nakamura, it's almost the size of the Nakamura. I mean, that's a tiny knife. Anthem swallows it. Yeah, the only thing I would change on this knife if it were me is if I were the builder, which would never be the case because nobody would buy it, but is the steel. I mean, I would definitely upgrade this knife to at least 390. I mean, 20 CV. Buying this much steel of 20 CV is just not crazy expensive. I mean, it just doesn't change the price of the knife much, especially when you're talking about a knife in this price range. But, you know, what happens is these manufacturers buy this steel in bulk, and they have to use it up before they go, you know, move to another steel. I get that. But, you know, when you're charging that kind of money, I think you could kind of scrap some of it, or at least offer an option, you know, $30 more for $390. Yeah, just overall, just a killer knife. It's cool. I mean, it's in my top 4. I can promise you that. I mean, it'll probably stay there as well. Hardly anybody, any of the really great manufacturers do the push button or plunge lock. I know Hogue does a bunch of them. I haven't collected or bought any Hogues. I haven't come across any, and I don't know nothing about them, so I can't speak to them. I'll probably end up picking one up just because of that. I mean, I would much rather have that than an automatic, because you can't close an automatic with one hand that easy, and I'm just as concerned about how I'm going to close it as when I open it, you know. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, and I don't think many knives can get to 10, but I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 on my personal scale. Go out and get one. You won't be disappointed. And I don't know about their warranty other than, you know, what they say about it, and I haven't heard anybody with any complaints on it other than me complaining about their appearance quality a little bit, but that's, you know, no big deal. I mean, the centering's perfect. You watch Greg Medford's videos on YouTube, it tells you how everything on this is to the 10th of a thousandth, which, I mean, that's unbelievable, but I'm sure true. I'm not saying that, but great knife. Go get you one. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.